songs, let me tell you about a friend. It's Craig LeBlanc, where the good times never end. Talking Parks and Rec, it's a show you gotta know. Welcome one and all to the Daily Parks and Rec Show. It's the Daily Parks and Rec Show.
For all of nature, our mission is to restore and restock the nature that existed in these places for time immemorial. We also have a quality of life mission. Park districts, that quality of life is number one. This is here to enhance what it is to live in this community. That's what we do too, but we also want to make sure all the plants and animals that we have shared this earth with make it to the next generation as well.
All right, we are live for our fourth show from the IRPA 2026 convention here only in Chicago. Y'all haven't hosted this in any other city, correct?
I don't think so. No, it's always here. It's always soaring to new heights. I guess we can always do a little better.
Y'all are fit. Look, I saw out of my hotel room a new building going up facing the lake.
Right.
So yes, y'all are soaring to new heights.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so now you were an executive director before. Maybe tell us about your background into what was that like?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So I'm executive director right now for the Forest Preserve District of Kane County. So this is starting my fourth year at that, but I've been doing this about 20 years. And I kind of came to nature conservation, a somewhat different route in that after high school, I joined the Marine Corps and I was a machine gunner. That was back right before September 11th. And so that happened. And my unit got activated, went to Iraq in 2003, came back from that, needing to kind of process everything that had happened there and spent a lot of time in nature, and then found out, hey, you can make a whole career out of this.
We'll pause a little on that. We'll take a little side quest. You know, in a video game, take a side quest.
Yeah, absolutely.
We actually started January, the first Tuesday in January, we started a new show. It's a weekly show on the Daily Parks and Rec Show. We produce it with our host, John Prue, and it's for the MWR. So we'll produce 52 shows this year about MWR, which is essentially Parks and Recreation on military bases.
Yep. My mom retired from MWR.
Oh, well, why don't you, that's kind of what, this is what our side quest is. To just tell the world about MWR and what that meant to you as a soldier.
Yeah. So, I mean, I was only in for 6 years and then, did mostly reserve time, but activated after 9/11, activated for Iraq. And then, but I come from a military family. So I grew up on military bases. And so all over the country and then in the Middle East. And so we always had MWR available, both as active military dependents. There's a lot of, I remember going to movie theaters all over the place. And so MWR runs a lot of those. My mother did a whole career in the Navy, and then after she got out, she had a whole career running a movie theater in NAS Fallon in Nevada, and then all the other there's so much MWR recreation. You can check out skis and go skiing, and it's all there for service people, and it's really a gateway into parks and recreation after that. But it's I know they're a big member of NRPA, MWR, and so it's all tied in. And I as you might imagine, I'm really into the mental health aspect of it, and I think there's a lot of healing to be done in nature and through play, that sort of thing. Got to be able to chill out.
Yeah, well, shout out to John Prue. He runs that show every Tuesday, so 1:30 p.m. Eastern. You can catch that show, and I threw up the logo for their show there. So we're doing a small segment on the front line. And so you spoke a little bit about mental health. We talk about how our communities need a place to unwind, to unplug from being on the screen, but maybe talk about how it's a whole nother level when you're in a combat zone or you're deployed. How does that work with needing to unwind and unplug?
No, and I think there's a lot. I mean, working with other veterans or just talking to other people, I like to say you need to deal with your stuff before your stuff deals with you, that sort of thing.
I love that.
I think especially in a macho kind of men and women, but an atmosphere where you're not prone to ask for help and you just want to tough it out. That's some of the worst. That's like the worst survival strategy when you're going through something, to just try and power through it. And then people start doubting, why am I not tough enough to get through this? But the like PTSD in general, I like to say the D is optional. The post trauma is coming from the environment that you were there. You can either get with other people who've had to deal with that and work through it. So you're like kind of identifying a weakness and getting rid of it, which is a strength. Or you can keep pushing it down and say, that's not me. I'm not weak. That's not bothering me. And then it just keeps running through your head and you can't sleep. You keep checking the house to make sure perimeters secure and everything like that. Well, now it's a disorder and you can't get any sleep, and then you're failing. You can't keep a job. So it's so, who would think going and hiking on a regular basis would help you chill out. But what happens is you get into nature, even in Chicagoland. I say that because I came from California, and it's easy to go down to the beach and you see redwood trees going into the ocean, and it just kind of blows your mind, right? You're like, wow, I'm a tiny little whatever on this earth, and then it shrinks. Your role, your problems end up shrunk. You think of all the people, warriors who have been in that situation prior and have survived, and it helps you do it. It shrinks it down, and when you get back into your day job or whatever it is, you come back to the same size and at the same pace that you were at, but your problem stays small for a while. And it's not a one-time thing. You got to constantly revisit and get that nature fix.
Yeah, because y'all are literally in a combat zone where you're being shot at, you may be shooting back, and then you've got to come back to base and try to somehow, compartmentalize or deal with, like you said, you either deal with that trauma or that trauma will deal with you.
It will, yeah. And I think you look at previous generations, and there's always the oldest generation always wants to say the youngest generation doesn't have it as hard as they did, sort of thing. But you look back at the trauma, the all the stuff that they had to do in World War II, even Vietnam. How did they leave those war zones? They went on ships. They went to Hawaii for R&R. It took weeks to get home, and during that time, they're in a confined space with the same people who just experienced that, but they're no longer in danger. And so they can relax and they can process that with people that they know. When and I'm not comparing my wartime experience to Normandy or anything like that, but when I left Iraq, we were there in 2003, which was the invasion portion of it, where people still stood up and wanted to fight. So we got through that, and then when we got home, we went to Kuwait and got on American Airlines, and 6 hours later we're in Baltimore, and then I was back in college within 10 days or something like that. And you're dealing with people who may not agree with whatever conflicts going on at the time. And I'm not weighing in on that. I understand it, but with somebody who's hasn't processed how they feel about everything yet, it's a very hard slap in the face to be put back in that. And then you don't have the answers to that. They don't take roll on, okay, here's where we're going next, who all's in. You sign a contract that was payable up to and including your life, and you honored that contract, and then you go and do that until your time is up. But so not having those answers, but being able to get outside and find connection and peace is a survival mechanism.
Yeah, and a lot of times when we think of a soldier, we think of like a full-grown adult male that's well into his life. We don't realize that an aircraft carrier is the largest floating high school in the world. It's like the general population between 18 and 21, with a few older people that are kind of managing the whole ship. Right.
No, exactly. They're still trying to figure things out, and they're like, I don't know, maybe the military is a good route. And then what do you think about this latest? I don't know.
Yeah, they're 18.
Yeah, no, I'm 46 now, and I'm starting to feel like I'm getting a place where I can explain what happened 20 years ago.
All right, so that'll be the end of our little side quest about the Military Rec Show, John. That'll give you a little content there. If you want to learn more about and talk more about how MWR serves our soldiers deployed overseas at military bases, that's a show we do every Tuesday, 1:30 p.m. Eastern. All right, so back to our regularly scheduled program here from the convention here at IRPA in Chicago. Maybe tell a little about what is the Forest Preserve District. What do they do and how do they serve y'all's community? Yeah,
so Forest Preserve District is different from a park district. And so a lot of people kind of try to explain it as, it's a countywide park district. It very much isn't, especially in I assume it's mostly Illinois residents watching. Everybody knows our tax burden in here, that we're a separate taxing entity, a special district, but it's a complementary mission. And so the way I most frequently describe it is we're here for all of nature. Our mission is to restore and restock the nature that existed in these places for time immemorial. We also have a quality of life mission. Park districts, that quality of life is number one. This is here to enhance what it is to live in this community. That's what we do too, but we also want to make sure all the plants and animals that we have shared this earth with make it to the next generation as well.
Right. And so that's kind of that we make sure that all of our most beautiful land doesn't become just another parking lot or subdivision that we say, hey, we're building 500 houses here. Let's make sure that we preserve some public land.
Yeah. And it's I like to say we have an ecological mission, but we also have to balance it economically. So it's not one or the other. So you can have this, you have these beautiful places that's going to help your property value. If you're backing up to a forest preserve, your house is going to sell for a premium. And the more intact and beautiful that nature is, the more people want to live next to it. We have I have a lot of conversations about that sort of thing.
Okay, so we made a little promo for the entire industry. By the way, this is on our YouTube channel. If you would like to use this, it's not copyrighted at all. We made this as a gift to the entire industry, and we would like y'all to play this in front of elected officials that are not in the Parks and Rec industry and have no idea what goes on. And so a lot of times when you're immersed in an industry, you forget that the rest of the population of the city doesn't realize what's going on day to day. So I'll play this little promo for you, Ben, and I'd love to get your feedback on it. And one of the things in there, it talks about how property values increase that are next to the park system.
I'm glad it lines up with others.
Yes. and so that's just one of the many things. So, but I'd love to get your take on this, and we'll come right back and finish up our conversation with you.
When we talk about essential services, what comes to mind? Police, firefighters, healthcare. But there's another essential service, often overlooked, yet always present: parks and recreation. Parks and Rec is health. It's the walking trail that lowers blood pressure, the recreation center where seniors fight isolation, the swim lessons that prevent tragedy before it happens. This isn't a luxury, it's a lifeline. Parks and Rec is safety. A playground instead of a street corner, a basketball court instead of trouble, a summer camp where every child belongs. It's not just about activity, it's about protection, prevention, and possibility. Parks and Rec is community, the festival that brings neighbors together, the cultural event that teaches respect and diversity, the open space where a city breathes. It builds bridges where division once stood. It gives people a reason to gather, to connect, to care. And Parks and Rec is economics. It strengthens property values. It drives tourism through events and trails. It saves on healthcare costs. Every dollar invested multiplies, feeding back into schools, into safety, into growth. Essential service is not just about survival, it's about thriving. And Parks and Recreation is where thriving begins. In wellness, in equity, in culture, and in joy. Parks and Rec isn't extra, it's essential. For our health, for our safety, for our communities, for our future. A message from the Parks and Recreation community.
All right. So what's your take on that? Anything to add?
No lies detected. That's outstanding. That's exactly what I agree with that. And then we had a real case study we never could have planned with COVID. And then what happened is people wanted to, everything was shut down. Couldn't go anywhere. And they really, people were scared right at the beginning where we had no idea what was going on. And they absolutely flocked to every little tiny forest preserve that nobody had ever discovered before, because they get outside, they could be safe. In an uncertain time, nature and the earth is very much grounding. And it's, you know, when I was coming up in this, there's these different, and I forget who the sociologist is that talked about it, but they mentioned about a hierarchy of needs. And so they would say, oh, when people have needs, they don't need us, meaning food, water, but it's essential. We're the baseline for everything. So it's, yeah, I couldn't agree more with it. I was thinking as that was going through about how economics and ecology have that same root word, and they both go back to taking care of the house. And so I think of it in your home, your own personal space. You've got to take care of the finances so you can keep the house. You also got to take care of your yard and take care of all that open space. And the better you do all of that, the better a quality life for everybody.
Fantastic. All right, so Ben, I'd like you, as we close out here, imagine you're standing in front of a group of college kids that have no clue what they want to do with their life, have never even heard of Parks and Rec as a potential career path. Even though they might have been a lifeguard for 4 years, it never dawned on them to say, hey, I could go work in Parks and Rec. What's your testimony to these group of college kids that have never even seen Parks and Rec and consider that as a career path?
Right. I think it seems too good to be true, to be able to enjoy every day of what you're doing, and to be under the sun and out in the grass and everything else. And then we're out looking for turtles and rare species and everything. But this is the way forward. There's three main threats to the sustainability of life on Earth. That's what's going on with climate change. We have a pollution epidemic. That's everything, all those different types of pollution. And then we have this crash in biodiversity. We're losing species like we've never lost them before. A lot of people think the response is going to be some physics technology that we haven't seen yet, but it's much simpler than that. It's changing the way we farm with the people that we have, updating those technologies and finding a way to keep those nutrients in the ground before they become pollutants. There's all kinds of jobs in that, in ag. There's all kinds of jobs directly in recreation, getting people out. It's without this sort of nature contact, you're not a well-rounded person. It helps you approach everything.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about biodiversity. We have a little bit of time left. And so when we talk about an athletic field, the exact opposite of biodiversity. You basically want Bermuda grass and nothing else.
Right.
But the green spaces that y'all also have, when we talk about the trees that are native species versus we want this plant that is not meant to grow here. Maybe talk about what you're talking about when it means biodiversity, why that's important in our parks.
Yeah. So just breaking it down, right? Bio is life, and diversity is variety. And then so when we were talking a little bit before we started recording about forestry and arborists and everything. If you take a forestry perspective, the goal there is to maximize timber feet, and that's fine. That's what the goal of forestry is. With the Forest Preserve District, our goal is to maximize biodiversity. We're trying to save as varied amount of life as possible. And so the way we do that is we partner with all the park districts. So they need to have a monotypic stand of Bermuda grass, and it needs to be mowed with a quarter and then striped. That's fine. You know, my kids use all the park district. We're in Kane County. We utilized St. Charles and Geneva Park District growing up. And then we partner with them to take a strip of habitat through the edge of that parcel. And then so we might have a forest preserve north and south of that and a couple ball fields in the middle. We'll connect that through nectar corridors. So we'll do pollinator garden through there. So now that monarch doesn't starve to death, en route to the next suitable habitat. And we could do the same thing through agroforestry, where we could have a strip of woodland habitat, and some open space just serves as a proxy for wildlife corridors. So we're playing ball or even using the spray ground during the day, but at night that becomes a highway for every critter that's going in between. So we're already partnering, and then the more we do that, the easier that we get a whole interconnected network of open space across Chicagoland. If all the metro areas are doing this, we map the whole country.
And I guess in hindsight it makes sense, but when we're doing it, we just see a tree in another park in another part of the country, and we're like, we want that tree that grows in New Orleans, but it probably might not grow well up here in Chicago. And the critters and the other life that exists on these trees don't exist on something that you might plant that's not native. Right. So maybe talk about, we're not just talking about plant biodiversity, but you know, whether it's insects or little four-legged creatures.
Right. Exactly. So I mean, there's a lot of talk within restoration communities about nativars, and then so it's a plant that can have the look of, say, a black-eyed Susan, but it was bred for its aesthetics. So it's gorgeous. It's going to sell. It's going to be blooming at Home Depot, that kind of thing. And so, or whatever location. And then, so then you buy that, but it wasn't bred in such a way that it has the same nutritional value for its pollinators. So insects just see that as a continuation of the ecological desert that is the turf field. It's not, we didn't make a little oasis for it to go to. So if we don't have that base level plant being utilized by other insects that are lower down in the food web, then the whole thing breaks down. So we can tolerate, as a community, planting things that weren't native to the area, as long as they've been vetted to have use by our non-specialist type species.
Yeah. And I love the language that you're using, because it speaks to the diversity of this industry that I'm sure when you were an executive director, and it seems like now when you're speaking, you're almost speaking like a biologist, and how in Parks and Rec, you just have to go get the skill set you're missing. Talk about that transition from being an executive director, running a park system, to now what you're doing. So it's a little bit backwards. I actually came up as an ecologist to become the executive director. And then, so that's why that's slipped out. But that's where my passion is. And then, but I'll say even my undergraduate was Earth System Science and Policy. The first part of my career, I was like, what is this policy sort of thing? Now I work with elected officials constantly. And then, so they've got to make the decisions that have lasting effects. I've got to run a staff to make sure that they're having scientifically informed conversations. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Ben, for coming on the show. And I did want to give a special shout out to Outdoor Link, one of our primary sponsors, but especially to Amelia. They're a local software company that makes software for parks and recreation. They're paying for us to come here and be here at IRPA. So I really want to thank them. And then we just last week launched our 400th episode. This is episode number 410. And so Chris, one of our very talented video editors, made a thank you. So we'll close out the show and then that'll play at the end. But the big shout out to all the people like Ben who have come on the show and shared their career and their passion for Parks and Rec. Any closing remarks to the Parks and Rec community of America?
The only thing I would say, we were talking about how to loop in the next generation. Everything we do is intergenerational. So I hope I've still got another 10 or 15 years that I'll be doing this, but this isn't something that AI is going to be taking over. This is something we need people in the field that are managing these spaces.
Absolutely. And shout out to all those young professionals. We have a weekly show every Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern. It's called the Young Professionals Network Show, aka YPN, and it's run by our interns in our internship program. So you can catch that. You can catch the show like we're doing today, which is more like our leadership series, where professionals like Ben come on, and then also like we spoke about the MWR, Military on the Front Line, plus 9 other shows that we do. So really appreciate you coming on the show today and sharing your journey with us, Ben.
Yeah, glad we stopped by. Thank you.
Take care.